Yep. So this is a bank account card with Business Central. What we're going to look at right now is the bank account card. We're going to take a look at the payment journal, and then we'll take a look at the vendor bank account card. First things first, bank account, you'll see that you're going to need to put some information here for banking institution, transit number. You're going to need to have like client number, ACH. This is similar to an originator ID. Those values here will normally be provided by the bank, and you might not need all of them, but it will depend how or which number value they're going to give you. You won't need to specifically select all the information here. There's actually a setup EFT wizard here that you can go through, and you select which bank you want to use. In this case, we're going to take RBC. Here, we're going to select the currency in US dollars. And this is not creating a new currency. You do not want to create a new currency anywhere. This is simply to say this is a US dollar type of setup. Do you know if your portal uses RBC Express or the standard one?
Yeah, we use Express.
Okay, so in this case, you would need to toggle this one. The data definition is very, very similar. It's just the first line that is different on this, but you'll need to select that. Then in here, you will need to select local vendor for local vendors for foreign currency if you want to send US dollar to Canada, the Canadian vendor, and this one here, foreign vendor, foreign currency, if it's for US payment. You can select both in this case. This here, tax identification, then all the information that you will need is going to be showing up here. If you already have some information on the card, it's going to show up here. If there's anything missing, you can simply enter it here, then click next. And this is where it's asking you for the batches. Like the first one is going to be the local vendor in US dollar. Again, Canadian payments if you ever want to do in the future. Maybe not for this use case, but if you want to pay someone to Canada and US, or if your American vendor also has a bank account in US denominated funds in Canada, that could be something interesting. If you don't need it, you don't need it. You can leave this one empty. And here you would need to simply select or create a batch. In this case, I already created it. I'm not going to continue after, but to show you what it looks like, you're going to have an EFT for Canada, EFT for US, and the export payment file. This is the good stuff here. This is where the data definition, we look at all the documents, figure out what needs to go where in which position, and then it's going to give you the payment file. So then you would click finish. In this case, it's not going to run because I don't have the information, but this is simply to show you what you need to fill in the bank account. So action, set up EFT if you need to, or somebody else, anybody can help you with the setup here. Now the payment journal. This is where you would show the new section here, the EFT, and I recommend you pin it, so it's going to be easier when you go back and forth. We're going to take a vendor. I'll give you an example. Vendor US. And it's automatically taking the recipient bank account card as a test here. I will just select invoice. So you need to have a document number here. You can put anything. It's going to be overwritten here by the remittance advice number anyway. So we're going to apply an entry here. We'll take this one. That's the last test I tested. So it should be 300. And it will obviously do the conversion. This is base BC, right? If you're paying Canadian dollar for US, but the currency code is going to show up here. All right, so your line is ready. You have the payment, you have today's date, the vendor, recipient bank account, the currency shows up there. And then if you take a look at the batches, they're already set up. So you have the bank account selected, number series, and here we're using ACH 96, which is what you were referring to for US in US dollar. And the electronic payment and the payee country count region code is US.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry.
Absolutely.
So can you go back to that?
Yep.
It looks like you're using the same bank account for the Canadian and the USA.
Correct.
But we have a US bank and we have a Canadian bank, which are two totally different banks.
Yes, correct. And this is what you're saying is correct. You're not supposed to have the same bank for both of them. I simply did it for this demo, this example.
Sorry, because I didn't know if it changed the number. Okay, sorry, my bad.
No, but that's actually a very good observation because that's something I wanted to mention towards the end. I just didn't create a full different bank for it. You can either create like a second vendor, or you can simply create two bank accounts on the vendor bank account card and set up the bank. You would need though to change manually the use for electronic payment. We'll take a look after, but that's a great observation.
Okay.
So this one is right now just configured for the US country code. And the major errors you're going to see if you ever try to move forward is because electronic payment is not either selected or you use by error the IAT or the computer check, but this is the only one you should be selecting. The other errors that might happen sometimes is if the bank account is empty, things like this. So it's pretty easy to fix. And if you do have an error, you simply need to open the fact box and take a look at the bottom here, payment file errors. This is where it's going to show up and it's going to say, well, wrong country code, missing bank account, I don't know, balancing account is not selected and things like this. All right, enough talking. So now for the fun stuff. I use a mnemonic device, eggs, EGGS, like the dozen eggs, to remember which steps precisely to use, because you don't want to send the confirmation of the payment before the payment is done and sending the remittance before, you want to have the right order here. So when you click on EFT, you're going to think about eggs, EGGS, so export, generate, and then send. And I'll give you an example here. So first you're going to export the remittance, select the right bank account, select the right batch, and you can also print your company address here. So it's going to take a couple of seconds, and you have the export electronic payments here. So we're piggybacking on the process from Microsoft. So this is not the final remittance advice. This is really for your own records and a good way for you to see what information will show up after on the actual remittance you're going to be sending to the vendors. And you can see here the remittance advice shows up. We use 005. You have the bank account number. Normally the address would show up here if I completed the vendor card setup, and then the information would show here. So if I go back, so we've exported the document, and if you scroll a bit to the right, you're going to see that check printed is now selected. If you ever want to cancel the EFT, you made a mistake or you want to start over, you need to select void all EFTs, because as you mentioned, you're going to get one file with all the payments. So you don't want to void one line after another, and I think it's actually not going to allow you to. So you want to void all of them. And then, okay, are you sure? And here we go. Check printed is gone now, and you can restart the process, but the information still stays on the line, right? So we're going to do this. X, EGGS, export, same information. Now we're going to take a look. It incremented to 006 instead of 5. Then we're going to generate, once you verify that the export payment is correct, we're going to generate the actual payment file now. And one thing I've noticed is sometimes you might have a business process inside where you need authorization or you're going to do it tomorrow for the payment. So you can change the settlement date here. Well, for the example, we'll just take the 23rd and see what happens after. So document date is 21st. Settlement date, well, we'll leave it to 23. And then we're going to do the second G, generate the EFT file. And here is what it looks like. So you're going to see at the bottom here, it shows the number of units. So you're not going to have the 1464, which is the standard Canadian to Canada payment. If it's US, you're going to have this 94 byte or 96 byte. It depends on how it's done. But in this case, you see here the date. This is when the file was generated. Because I'm on the other side of the world, is taking the time in the Philippines, so I'm 1 day ahead of you. And then here it's taking the settlement date when the file is going to be accepted. And I'm pointing those two because you want to make sure that you have the right settlement date. If you're going to send a remittance advice, you probably want to process this one before. All right, this is done. I'm going to minimize this. So once you have sent the payment file, uploaded it, sent, it was accepted, you're good to go. You can now send the confirmation to the vendor. I pre-selected the document sending profile here. And now you would have a screen like this for each different vendors that you've sent the remittance to. There's only one file for the payment file, which you would have like each payments that are going to show up. So if you have 40 vendors in there, you're going to have 40 times 8 lines. So it makes for a big file, but it's only one that you have to upload. However, this screen here is how you're going to send the email to confirm to the vendors. There's a few things to know here. So the from to address is going to be the default email address that you have in Business Central. In my case, I simply use the current user, and you have this gibberish here, but you can set up your own email, and it can be a no reply email or an accounts payable email. You can also see CBCC. Again, this is basic Business Central functionality. The subject line here is going to be automatically filled in. So you're going to have which company it's coming from, the remittance number, and then the name of the actual vendor here. And the message that you see here, I included this, but this is something you can put your name, phone number, logos, colors, hyperlinks, a bunch of different things. I was not too fancy. I made it very simple.